Hate it or love it, the world is full of worms. Physically vulnerable, these squishy creatures find safety in weirdness. Some form gruesome alliances, while others grow new brains. Worms can eat without mouths, control other species, and enjoy environments that would kill most of the living things. The slithering wonders also have scientists' undivided attention. Not only can they fertilize other planets, but one kind could also be the solution to the world's plastic crisis. Top 10 abilities proving that worms are weird. Number 10. Earthworms on Mars. There are no earthworms currently exploring the red planet, but in 2017, research showed that they could successfully thrive in Martian soil. A few Dutch earthworms were gathered and placed in a special mix. Years ago, NASA invented fake Mars sand. The substance is so close to the real thing that it helps the agency research rovers, spacesuits, and mining equipment. To see if earthworms could survive and help make the planet more fertile, scientists combined the stimulated soil with manure, fertilizer, and rucola plants. The main worry was that the grains might be too sharp for earthworms. Since Mars has less weathering than Earth, the sand tends not to be so fine. For example, Earth's silver sand consists of quartz and is used in gardening. The pig manure was expected to help with this issue, but surprisingly, together with the worms, it made the fake soil a better growing medium than silver sand. The best moment was when scientists discovered that the earthworms had unexpectedly started a family. Number 9. Zombie worms with acid. In 2002, oddworms were discovered near the California coast called zombie worms. They love eating the bones of large marine animals. They prefer a skeleton until it resembles Swiss cheese. Bone-crunching worms may sound normal, but this species lacks mouth parts that can grow. The creature also have no digestive system. If zombie worms cannot scrape bones or digest them, how did the holes form? In 2013, answer proved that the critters were indeed responsible. Instead of using teeth, they dissolved skeletal remains with acid. The skin produces the noxious substance, which seeps from protein pumps resembling these found in human kidneys. Even the cellular process making the acid is nearly identical to the cellular mechanism that produce osteoclasts in humans. Osteoclasts break down bone matter. How the worms digest the dissolved food remains unknown. Number 8. They hijack brains. Sometimes ants encounter a tasty ball of goo. Within the snack lurks the larvae of the lancet liver fluke. Once consumed, the larvae turns into a worm that hijacks the ant's brain. It drives the insect up a blade of grass until a browsing animal swallows the ant. After a cow consumes it, the worm lays eggs. The cow expels the eggs, which are eaten by snails. The larvae hatch inside the snail before getting pooped out as yummy orbs for ants. Despite understanding the flatworm's life cycle, science could not explain how it controlled the ant's behavior. In 2018, researchers lopped off the heads of the infected insects. Using a miniature version of a CT scan, they took the first ever snaps of the takeover. The images showed that several flatworms often competed for the same brain. The winning flute used mouse suckers to latch onto the nerval areas that control walking in the ant's jaws. This could explain why zombie ant strolls up a blade of grass and locks its jaws near the top, effectively holding it in place for a browsing cow. Number 7. Cryogenic superstars. Nematoids are microscopic worms. Normally they wiggle around in the soil and nobody takes much notice of them. In 2018, they blew the world's mind. Alright, maybe not everybody's, but nematoids from Siberia prove that cryogenic fans might not be crazy. Cryogenic involves freezing things, including people, for later revival, possibly hundreds of years into the future. In 2018, the nematoids were found in permafrost dating back to the Pliocene. Creatures have been frozen solid for 42,000 years. When researchers defrosted the worms, two species started to move. Not only was it their physical movement, but the worms also consumed their first meal in a millennia. This marked the first ice rebirth of a multicellular organism in history. Since it happened naturally, scientists are still trying to understand how the nematoids survived 42,000 years as popsicles. Number 6. They form deadly partnerships. When heterohyditis, nematoids and bacteria called photohybdus luminescens gang up, no insect is safe. Should a grasshopper crawl by, the nematoid propels itself from the soil and burrows into the host body. Once inside the victim, the worm vomits the bacteria from its own gut. The poisonous bacteria quickly kills the insect. Additionally, they release a chemical that prevents the corpse from decomposing. This provides the worm with weeks of fresh meat and a cozy nursery for baby nematoids. To prevent larger predators like birds from eating the dead insect, the bacteria has a few tricks. Using one of the best known warning colors in nature, they turn the carcass red. It also reeks of almonds, which is another stay away signal that birds recognize. Strangest of all, they cause the body to glow an electric blue. In turn, the nematoids act like transport for the bacteria. Right before the worm abandons the insect, the baby nematoids eat some of the bacteria, later to be regurgitated inside a new host. Number 5. Considerate cannibal parents. To the human eye, nematoids all look the same. The microscopic worms are uniformly smaller than sesame seeds and have no individual distinguishing features. Despite this, nematoids recognize their own young. This first became apparent when researchers studied the creature-eating habits. Gruesomely, some nematoids eat each other. As ferocious as these cannibals were, they refused to gobble up their own offspring. When presented with unrelated nematoids, they consumed them. This mysterious recognition defied explanation. Until 2019, to find out what was going on, scientists turned to a worm called Pyocanis pacificus. It had a nasty habit of preying on other species of nematoids as well as its own. Analysis of its DNA revealed a gene called SELF1. For some reason, this gene was definitely the reason why young nematoids were safe around killer parents. How did the team know this? When they removed SELF1, the worms ate their kids as if there was no tomorrow. Number 4. The buttless wonder. For a long time, scientists wondered how Paracetanula survived, despite having no mouth, gut, or butt. The flatworm thrives in seabeds, wherever there are mild temperatures. Most species need these traits to eat, process food, and expel waste. Recently, the answer proved to be a remarkable symbiosis with bacteria, called Regeria. Together, they formed a chemosynthesis cycle, where energy is drawn from a chemical process instead of sunlight. The bacteria produce enough nutrients to sustain the worm. Paracetanula does not need a mouth to harvest this food because the bacteria already live inside the worm. The organisms also use the worm's waste, eliminating the need for a butt. Two things made the friendship special to science. Normally, all worms with chemosynthesis bugs must eat the actual bacteria to gain benefits. This makes the benevolent bond between Paracetanula and Regeria something unique. Additionally, they've been at it for 500 million years. Number 3. They thrive in poison. In 2008, scientists explored Sulphur Cave in Colorado. Since the cave contained enough hydrogen sulfide to kill a human, there were breathing equipment and a medical team walked outside. Besides the deadly gas, the cave also dripped sulfuric acid capable of burning through clothing. Surprisingly, a new species of worm lived in the deadly habitat. Finding Limeridiasis sulfonensis inside the sulfur cave classified the creature as extremely weirdness. This means that they thrive in a place where most other animals, bugs, and people would perish. The tiny worm's blood-red color was also intriguing. Their hemoglobin binds to oxygen much more than other species. This compensates for the cave's low oxygen levels and could be causing the scarlet look. Other bright red worms live near hydrogen sulfide vents under the sea. The marine worms use bacteria to process the toxin, but the sulfur cave worms appeared to do that all by themselves. Number 2. They regrow brains. From 2012 to 2014, ribbon worms found themselves stuffed into researchers' containers. The 22 species were picked up in Argentina, the United States, New Zealand, and Spain. Once bagged, they went to a laboratory to gain tested for regeneration abilities. Incredibly, after several had their heads chopped off, 8 species grew new noggins. This includes spanking fresh brains. One individual showed off and regenerated itself despite missing the entire front half of its body. In 2019, a deeper analysis shattered a scientific belief. It was thought that regeneration in related species started with a common ancestor. This was not the ribbon worm way. Tests determined that their common ancestor was a deadbeat as far as regrowing heads was concerned. From an evolution standpoint, each of the 8 species performed a spectacular feat. They evolved the ability on their own and independently of each other. Number 1. The plastic solution. In 2017, a scientist and beekeeper noticed parasites in her hives. She removed the wax worms and temporarily placed them in a shopping bag. After completing several beekeeping duties, she noticed that the plastic bag was full of holes. The worms were either just chewing through the plastic or actually eating it. If they had consumed the bag, the parasites would become the hero in the worst pollution problem in decades. An unusual test proved that the worms could dissolve plastic. Researchers squashed a few and smeared their goopy remains over shopping bags. The latter shriveled and disappeared. This was a super exciting moment because plastic is notoriously hard to break down. During a second experiment, 100 waxworms gulped 92 milligrams of polyethylene within 12 hours. 1,400 times faster than any bacteria used in previous trials. It's believed that the worms have an enzyme capable of breaking down beeswax for easier consumption. The same enzyme could be dissolving the plastic. If scientists can reproduce this compound, it could be used to destroy plastic en masse.
Hey, thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe to our channel to stay informed about our upcoming videos because more incredible content is on the way.